All right. Get record going here. I think we have touched base on YouTube. As soon as somebody is out there, let
Donna,
us know.
come find us. They're not showing me that you're live streaming and I subscribe to you, those fuckers.
Let's see. We're a little late tonight, so Jana maybe, and I was going to send out a thing saying, "Oh, we're almost ready to go," and then I forgot to do that. So, hopefully someone will show up and let us know that they can hear us. Someone's there. Tarantula. Hey, hello.
Tarantula?
Right.
I'm not seeing it in front of my eyes.
Tarantula. All right. Yes, guys. My apologies. I know when I posted in community earlier, I said I'd send her like a notice when we were about to go, and I forgot. My long car trip and ADD-addled brain just sometimes overlooks the administrative functions, and that's what's happening here. So we will give kids a few minutes to fill in. Looks like we have a dozen. So we've got, a dozen so far. So, a class at a private school.
Yeah, totally.
Like when I went to Egremont, like private school and elementary school, we had like 12, somewhere between like 10 and 13 kids in the class, right? Dozen bagels, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of dozen bagels.
What was your go-to bagel place in LA?
Bagel Nosh.
Okay. Yeah.
Bagel Nosh for like, and then like, depending on what area of town you're in, either Bagel Nosh or Goldstein's, like those two, like in the 80s and 90s. And then like now, fucking Courage Bagel, dude. Courage Bagel has like, I can see why somebody would maybe not say, oh, it's the best bagel to eat just as a plain bagel, right? But their bagel sandwich, like their lox sandwich, is one of the most glorious things I've ever tasted. The combination of their interesting bagel and their like, I don't know, like every little thing on the sandwich is like delicately salted perfectly with Malden salt crystals and just the right amount of drizzle of lemon and olive oil on, you know what I mean? Like, and it's amazing.
The same salt you carry in your purse at all times.
Correct. So yeah, so that's pretty much like the Bagel Nosh is not, the Valley one is not there anymore. So if you want Bagel Nosh now, you have to go to the one in Santa Monica. And the Goldstein's in Pasadena isn't there anymore. So like, we had to move on. Anywho, all right. And what was your go-to bagel place?
Western Bagel.
No, Dani.
What do you mean no? They flew the water in from New York. Those were the best bagels in LA, hands down. And Debbie Goldstein's grandfather owned it, so we got free bagels.
Well, the free bagels might have been what made them taste so good.
Those are the best bagels.
No.
Are you kidding me?
It's funny because I have this fight with one of my family members as well, right? Like for me, like the reason that they called them Western bagels is because no one from the East Coast would eat them.
They were made with East Coast water.
Have you ever had a bagel like off the street in New York?
Yeah.
Like they don't taste anything like Western bagels.
Closer than Bagel Nosh.
No, Bagel Nosh is close. Like the things I had when I lived in New York tasted almost exactly like Bagel Nosh.
Okay.
Nothing like listening to two Jews argue about bagel. But if you'd like to hear two Jews argue about much more than that, then we suggest you tune into the episode, our regular Words podcast, episode number 86.1 and 2, that we'll be posting tomorrow and sometime next week or the week after or whatever. We'll say more about that later. That's a real Jew argument. Right. All right, guys. Good evening. Sorry for the late start time. I had to travel for work today, so I'm coming to you from this interesting, it's kind of cool hotel room, but I think Fort Worth is a 15-minute city. I haven't had one, like the people here are super nice. Like there's people, but like there's no buttons to push on everything. Everything just like opens and like knows you're there, and it's kind of weird. But anywho, and I passed like an enormous Masonic temple just a block or two away from here, like a really big one. Yeah. So anywho.
Okay.
So here we are, and but we're better late than never, and we're ready to go. I think Dani brought more toys to the show today than I did, but I'll have some things to say, and we'll get it going. Dani, where would you like to start?
I would like to open with the matrix squeeze that I'm currently experiencing. I'm curious to know if anyone else is experiencing this. I know that there are remedies for everything within the matrix enslavement construct. So I'm definitely inviting your guys' genius with those. So I have had a post office box for the past 4 years. All my mail goes to the post office box and has consistently for the past 4 years. So about 2 years ago, we all got these notices in our boxes saying, oh, you're required to fill out this form and tell us your home address. Some of my friends didn't do it. I will decline to explain whether I did or did not, but there's a new one afoot. So I got a notice in my box about 6 weeks ago saying the post office now requires, or postmaster, that you fill out this form and show us 2 forms of ID that have that match your home address, which has to be different than the PO box address. So I talked to the mailbox guy and I'm like, I don't have anything. Like, I'm happy to go through this like performative enslavement sovereignty squeeze with my with my passport and my driver's license. And he's like, well, those don't work because those are our address. And I'm like, right, because I'm your customer. And that's why I have a post office box, because this is my address. So it's this like seemingly unfixable thing. So then I'm calling California to see if I could get my California driver's license, which I actually did renew, which has my California address on it, but it didn't arrive in the mailbox. So of course, no humans at the post office anymore. And Miles, the friendly AI bot who like routes everything, doesn't give options for like speaking to a person or whatnot. So I put in 5 ticket requests for a call. 2 hours late of like the latest one, I get a call and they're like, oh, okay, well, you have to call. We sent it out a month ago. So you have to call, you have to talk to someone in this department. They have a week-long waiting list for calls back. And I'm like, okay, so I'm waiting a week for someone in your office to call me back to just start broaching this issue. What if I'm not available in like whatever random moment between now and next Wednesday when they decide to call me back? And he's like, yeah, then you have to start the process all over again.
Sounds about right.
So that's happening.
Okay. So are they just threatening to close your PO box?
They're just saying the US Post Office will no longer deliver mail for me.
That sounds perfect to me.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, that's kind of cool. I don't care, except for stuff around, like, there are a few things, like, I do own property. Like, there are a few things that I would like to, I'm going to need, you know, like registration stickers or whatnot. You know, it's just like that stupid squeeze.
Right.
Yeah.
What if so your PO box is at the post office?
No, it's at a private mail place.
Private place.
So the guy who owns it, he's like, I hate saying on our side, but like he moved to Idaho. He knows what's going on. So I had a conversation with him today and I'm like, look, they're never going to see this document because I'm never going to do whatever it is that has them coming to you to demand my home address. Right. So can you just approve, you know, my passport and my blah, blah, blah? Well, we're not allowed to do that. I'm just like, I don't. And he's like, you're not the only one having this issue. I'm like, obviously, because we all have post office boxes for a reason and we use that as our address. So I don't know. It's just like, oh, is this when it's really starting?
It is interesting. Like, I'm not, like, I try to do everything I can to ignore the fact that mail even exists as a concept. So I'm certainly not an expert on the post office, though. I think like David Wynn Miller was the post office expert, right? The parse syntax grammar guy,
yes.
Right? Who was like, the whole world is being controlled through the post office, right? So he might have a fix for you. I think he would be about 112 by now, because last time we checked in with him, he said he was 96, even though he didn't look like a day over 52, right? But yeah, so there we go. So I invite people in the chat room, if they've come up against this issue, or they have any creative ideas as to either A, how Dani could problem solve, or B, creatively fuck with the system, bring him to the floor. Bring him to the floor, because if we can't get solutions, let's at least have entertainment, right? Awesome. Okay. Moving on. What clip would you like to start with this evening?
Let's start with the RFK, just
Okay.
because I think it's a piece that I'm excited for all of us to hear coming from his own mouth.
All right. So here we go. Fair use, RFK on Douchebag Rubin Report. Here we go. I'm sorry, I don't normally talk like that, but like there's no person, like today he had a clip up on YouTube that said that the police or the state shows pro-Palestinian protesters who's boss, right? Like he's just getting so like over the top and gross with this, right? Remember, like, yeah. So yeah, it's okay. Like I can't believe I was ever even partially fooled by this nitwit, but I was. So I don't know what that says about me, but here we go. Oops.
On that, I would say
That's fine.
there's not going to be a better environmental president in history than me. And I've been doing this all my life. And President Biden says that, he's good on climate.
It's not in this clip, but like he says, I've been doing this all my life in reference to why he would be the best president for the environment. So as far as what he thinks he's doing, that translates.
It's interesting that he was doing all of these important things during the years when he was also a drug addict and a serial, sleeper arounder, because I sure know, I mean, like while I was digging through rabbit holes during my dark days, I certainly wasn't doing much like that the world would count as productive. You know what I mean? So I'd like to know what kind of heroin it was he was doing that made him able to do all these environmental things while he was doing that. Okay.
I mean, that's his big priority, that's his big win is, the Inflation Reduction Act. But you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, and it's all about carbon control. It's all about carbon capture. It's all about these huge multi-billion-dollar projects that are actually just subsidies for the industry. And it's all about top-down controls, which are driving people apart and, making people feel like, oh, this is another manufacturing crisis that they're using to take away our freedom and clamp down totalitarian controls. I've spent 40 years actually understanding the issue and whether I believe climate change is existential, but I don't insist anybody else believe that. The things that
he believes climate change is existential. That's it. That's it for this clip. But give me screen share, pretty please.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say on that before I take us to part B?
No, I mean, I think that like this has probably been the main criticism of people on the right who might consider voting for him based on his medical freedom stances and or who might not even be turned off by his pro-Israel stance and like that, people on the right. But this is their concern about him. This is the conspiracy theorists who still vote concerned about him. I mean, it's fun to talk about the concerns about him. I have no concerns about him because I'm not voting for him. Right? So I don't vote. So, but yes, like that, he's very clear in this, and this might relate to something that I will talk about later. But I mean, I think he's always been pretty clear. He's moved from remember back 20 years ago, it was people who don't believe in climate change should be jailed. Now it's just, I don't demand that they agree with me. It's just that it's existential. Okay.
It's existential because if we're dealing with existential crisis, then we're dealing with the suspension of more rights like the Patriot Act because it's existential, right? It requires these like large scale interventions.
Well, and we're going to find out all about existentialism on tomorrow's episode of Regular Words.
Yes. This whole show is a commercial for tomorrow's episode of Regular Words. So I just want to make sure that I have all my tech is so extra wonky today. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, and what I'm sharing is the transcript of this talk with Dave Rubin. I'm sorry, with douchebag Rubin. And I just did a search for the word existential. Can you see this, Em?
Yes, and everyone will understand this after tomorrow.
Correct. But it's something for us to start. We're the like PSYOP trend forecast. So now trending in globalist, techno-fascist PSYOPs is the word existential. So let's look at how many times he drops this in an hour-long conversation. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that 6? 7. So we got 7 mentions of existential
in the first 2.5 minutes.
Yes.
In the first 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. All
Pretty
right.
much.
Yes. Everything going forward is either going to be existential or meta, followed by 2 other words that we'll let you know tomorrow. But
and
yes.
The 2 other words are in the you have the clip, the Brett Weinstein clip.
Wonderful. So he will tease everyone out. Okay. So while we're on the topic of RFK, like this is what like the things that I have that are semi-related to whatever you've brought here, I'll just introduce them. I don't have any clips today. So I watched a video this morning about like how controversial of a pick that Nicole Shenanigan has been, and that it's not just controversial because like people who are maybe his new kind of supporters based on his COVID stances, or that he's just not Biden and Trump. It's not what the reason it might be controversial to them. This is how upset the Democrats are about this, right? The Democrats are actively trying to do background research on her, opposition research, and destroy her. Apparently, Ro Khanna, the progressive from California, sent her a letter telling her it was her moral responsibility to step down as the vice presidential nominee, based on, her past what she used to support in the past. Like if she even believes in any of those things anymore, it's her moral duty to step down, kind of thing. Like there's all these people who are hot and bothered by it. And then of course, whoever I was listening to, I can't remember if this is Kim or Bree, like they're just kind of more critical of the fact that like, and I think we would agree about this, so all of her evolutions of position have happened so quickly that it's not clear whether like these are positions that she actually holds now, or whether they will rotate again with the next, breeze in the wind, whatever it is, right? But I think that I feel like that's fascinating that a sitting progressive senator, or was he a senator or congressman? I think is he a senator, Rokon? I think he's a senator. I can't remember. I had an orb here too. Did you see it? Feather flyer.
We can't blame your apartment.
But like whatever it is, like I don't know if they're afraid that she's going to take from like the middle-aged stay-at-home mom who like sits around and drinks wine and takes her kid to soccer practice. Like that seems to be like, those are the kids that have like one child with autism, right? And whatever that they talked about that's her group, right? Because she has a kid with autism, right? And she was part of like those warrior mom groups or whatever. So and that was a big demographic for them. That was a demographic that was important to them in the last election. But it's fascinating that anybody feels threatened by Nicole Shenanigan.
Okay, well, I have a couple things. I sent Adam Curry our show on the Moskovitz because he was talking about, they did one show about her as a pick. He never responded, and he hasn't mentioned it. Where I'm like, oh, why would you not? I gave you such juicy insight on this. Why are you not?
He always responds to you, and usually even if he usually mentions the things you say, even though he doesn't credit you.
Correct. He doesn't credit anyone. I heard John called him out on it.
Yeah.
So the other thing is so I wonder if this is theater, but I feel like the only threat is that she's rich enough to get him on the ballots, rich enough to open doors. But so the way that the campaign is now spinning is the youth vote. And that's her whole, I know you didn't watch the whole
They said
video.
this thing too. This is what were those girls that you found, like the sunshine girls, those sunshine climate girls that you brought to a show?
Yeah, from when Millie Weaver did something about
Yeah,
it.
it seems like that would be a group of people that she could, like those kind of kids would be someone she could capture.
Yeah, that's the spin, which could maybe work on like Gen Z, Gen Y, I don't know. But he was even saying in this Rubin, which was obviously so scripted and lame, where Dave's like, well, what's the, who's not into you? Like, which demographics are not into you? Which was already a bizarre question. And he's like, the boomers,
Right.
which is weird because of the Kennedy thing, and they're old enough to remember.
His script, yes.
The script, yeah. So I think that's, her and her AI, she's all about computers and tech, and he's all about computers and tech and pushing that whole agenda and appealing to the young people.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I think he's going to have a different path to the same garden that like he opposes, right? So he was against the idea of, vaccine passports and mandates and those things being the path to, the sort of integrated digital token UBI model or whatever it is. But I think he'll be perfectly fine with it around, some of these other things that are just like, oh, you get benefits for doing something good, or, you learn a skill, or you do this or that is going to be all that kind of stuff.
But also keep in mind, like, we know that he's funded by someone who squelches the virus, no virus conversation. I don't know his authentic opinion on it, but he backs Israel unconditionally, so he's not opposed to mandated impositions, right. And he's now seeding the narrative that the climate is existential. Right. So will there be climate passports and climate impositions and all of that under him? I think absolutely.
Well, I think one of the things he also, remember that episode of Schellenberger on Joe Rogan that we analyzed, where he was talking about incentivizing the homeless drug addicts to get their lives together, right? I think those kind of, my guess would be that he would be the kind of person that would enact something like that, right? And so then if you make the jobs around that, these more sort of green or climate oriented jobs and whatnot. So I think the way he would go at it wouldn't be like this, oh, you can't do this if you don't have the passport thing or whatever. It would just be like, we're going to make your life easier and better, quicker, faster, sooner if you do these things we like, right? Like, rather than taking something away, taking away a freedom, that's going to be the thing that he tantalizes people who are in a hard situation out of that path with, that starts to sort of build this more overall acceptance of that whole game. That seems more like his speed to me, right? Which seems on one level less authoritarian, but ultimately not any less totalitarian.
I can totally see that as an option. And because he's proven himself to be such a blatant sociopathic liar, I wonder what he would truly be like in office, and if we would see the same RFK who would be towing those same lines, or if he would go full-fledged authoritarian.
It's been fascinating to watch him, one has to wonder, because I don't think I ever heard him say anything really about Israel until there was that weird clip of him where he was talking about the joy basically being maybe selective for certain ethnicities or whatever, and that got clipped, and mainstream news used that to call him an anti-Semite. They took it totally out of context, and then all of a sudden he became Shmuley's whipping boy, and suddenly he was this rabid Zionist or whatever it is. So I don't know which of his positions he holds because they're the positions he truly holds, which ones he holds because he's being paid to hold them, and which ones he holds because he's being blackmailed to hold them.
Correct. That's the thing. It's like everything is such a snow job with him that I don't even know what to believe. Yeah. And also, since you mentioned the quid, you mentioned Rogan, and you mentioned RFK being called an anti-Semite, then the schmooly, then the like whatever. So I just kind of want to draw our attention to not the same but similar op in Andrew Schultz sitting down with Bustamante, and then within less than 2 weeks he's on Joe Rogan.
I think he's been on Joe Rogan before.
Really?
I think that's the first place I ever saw him was on Joe Rogan.
Oh, I had no idea. Okay.
Yeah, because I remember like seeing him, and he has like one of those faces that feels like he's like a teenage star from the 50s kind of face.
Totally.
Right? That sort of look. And I remember noticing it. He may have been on a panel show like with multiple comedians. You know how Joe sometimes has like 2 or 3 of his comedian buddies on at the same time or something like that. But I have seen him. I either have like Mandela effect time traveled myself into another reality, or I've seen him on the Joe Rogan before.
It's totally possible.
But yes, he really passed with flying colors after that op. And so, yes, for sure. But
and
I also
was on right after.
I also know he's on tour right now. Sorry, he's on tour, and he was in Austin that same week that he was on the Joe Rogan podcast because he was performing at the theater I provide cocktails for.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So hate to kill the conspiracy. But no, he's definitely in that circuit now.
Okay.
Right. He's definitely moved into that realm on a big level. So okay. Next clip. Which one you want?
Let's do abortion.
All right.
So let's do Kamala's.
All right. I got it for you. Here we go.
No, wait, pause. I'm wondering if we should do, let's do Kamala.
Okay, here we go.
What has happened here in Arizona is a new inflection point.
Pause.
It has demonstrated.
Does everyone know what happened in Arizona? They just put through a like draconian abortion ban.
Correct. I think most people know.
Okay.
Once and for all, that overturning Roe was just the opening act, just the opening act of a larger strategy to take women's rights and freedoms, part of a full-on attack, state by state, on reproductive freedom. And we all must understand who is to blame.
This is the most coherent sentences I've ever heard her say, but aside from that, yeah.
Oh yeah, they rehearsed her a lot for this. Like she's on. But reproductive freedom, like not bodily freedom, like nothing like that. And then she also mentions a war on women, kind of like the trans movement, like taking away women's spaces and putting men in women's sports, like that thing that she backs.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah.
Former President Donald Trump did this. And now, because of Donald Trump, more than 20 states in our nation have bans.
Pause.
Now, because
she just said, and we can see it on the screen, she said now because of Donald Trump 3 times. So in terms of propaganda, like that statement is absurd on every possible level. And she'll get into, like, she's going to try to back it up. But I just want us to notice, like, the blatant programming of the public, because I'm sure no one watching our show is watching this shit, right? So for those of us wondering, like, why is everyone so crazy? It's because of psychos like this.
But the psychos exist on every level, because that was going on in what we were analyzing yesterday for tomorrow. The repetitive, like, finding a phrase that you like, and then repeat it, even whether it makes sense or not, repeating it, and sort of being not allowing any stray from that verbiage at all. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
because of Donald Trump, 1 in 3 women of reproductive age in our country live in a state that has a Trump abortion ban.
Pause. So that's the new branding, the Trump abortion ban. The dude isn't even in office. And even if he was, would still have nothing to do with this. But that is now their new subtitle for this.
I mean, they can never pass up a chance to blame anything on Donald Trump. Yeah. All right, here we go.
And let us understand the impact of these Trump abortion bans.
Number 2.
The horrific reality that women face every single day now in our country. Here's what a second Trump term looks like. More bans, more suffering, and less freedom. Just like he did in Arizona, he basically wants to take America back to the 1800s. But we are not going to let that happen.
Oh, you go, girl.
And now,
But the funniest thing is, like, this is probably the best speech of her entire career. And
100%.
That was like her that was like her best, like, just like, she looks so proud of what I just did. Look at this, guys.
She was feeling it. The lizards in the green room are like, ooh, she's going off book. She's improvising her gestures.
Right.
Trump wants us to believe he will not sign a national ban. Enough with the gaslighting. Enough with the gaslighting.
That's a big word for her. Gaslighting? That's 3 syllables.
All Trump has ever said is it should go to the states. No president has the right to create a ban. Like, her story is so completely cuckoo.
Yep.
Overturning of Roe was, without any question, a seismic event. And this ban here in Arizona is one of the biggest aftershocks yet.
Writing. You can stop it.
Okay, that's all?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Okay. So, did you want to say something or want me to go to number 2 on the abortion?
I mean, I think the ridiculousness
Yeah,
is self-evident.
Yeah, I think the drawing of the box was like the best thing I've seen all day. All right, here we go.
Check out her eye, her left eye.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is she a bot? Is she human? Is that where they put her?
It's one of these, it's amazing how many people have this scenario. But the part that's fascinating to me is that, like, and I say this with not judgment about how people look, but generally the people who get chosen to go on television as talking heads, unless they're like incredibly famous for something else, and so like it doesn't really matter what they look like or anything like that, like they choose people who are screen friendly, and you'd think that facial symmetry and that kind of stuff would be part of how they choose who does this. Now, I don't remember what it was she does before she did this, so she may have done something that qualifies her as like being famous, and that's why they want her there or whatever it is. But it's surprising to me how many people who are talking heads on TV have eyes that are one much smaller than the other, right?
Well,
Okay.
because I think that's where their control mechanisms are. It's clearly behind the left eye.
It's the MK Ultra. Yeah.
Correct.
Like some people have it in the eye and others have it in the eyebrow. I'm kidding, right? Like as your left eyebrow pulls back. I'm kidding. I'm teasing you.
Is the single solitary reason that half of America now lives in a reproductive prison. It was he who nominated 3 justices who lied to all of us and to the United States Senate when they promised to respect precedent, including on abortion. Stare decisis, they said. Yes, stare de perjury is more like it. But they are who they are and always were. It is because of Donald Trump that millions of women are held hostage to a minority of right-wing men. But if you listen to his...
Look, I love how they're just like making like it's normal that there are pink clouds in the sky behind her, right? Like the story is the pink clouds behind her, right? Like that's a sky. Those clouds are pink.
Yeah.
Where's the conversation? The other, like Laura and I were walking the other night, and like we've gotten used to, we've been like accepting that sometimes like as the sun sets, some of the clouds take on this pinkish tone. Like literally there was a fucking cotton candy circus in the sky the other day when we were on our walk. Like this wasn't like, oh, the way the light is hitting and there's some particulates in the air. Like, no, dude, somebody is fucking blowing pink cotton candy in the sky. Like it looks ridiculous. Yeah. Okay, here we go.
His lies, you would think he did a good thing.
For 52 years, people have wanted to end Roe v. Wade to get it back to the states. we did that. It was an incredible thing, an incredible achievement. We did that, and now the states have it, and the states.
All of us, and to the United States Senate.
What did I just do? Hold on, I messed up. Okay, here we are.
And Roe.
So,
Okay, go ahead.
shocker of shockers, they took it out of context because the very first part of this interview is the reporter saying, do you think Arizona went too far? And he says, yes, but there's enough pushback, they're going to roll it back. So they totally took that part out to prop up the insanity.
Yep.
Did that. It was an incredible thing, an incredible achievement. We did that, and now the states have it, and the states are putting out what they want. You're getting the will of the people. It's been pretty amazing when you think.
Yeah, well, if you listen to voters, Donald, they don't agree. In fact, they rightly blame you and Republicans for
Didn't
this.
he just say that part that they cut out in the beginning that you said he said that they've gone too far and they'll roll back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Nightmare.
Okay. Done with that one.
So I have an unpopular opinion about this, which I actually go into so I had a new podcast come out today, and then my bonus episode is the post-show throwdown, where I go deeper into this. But I actually think if we want to blame, and I don't believe in blame, the blame game is stupid, it's backwards pointing, it's useless. But if there's anyone to blame for abortion, it's hysterical liberals who for over a decade or 20 years have been screaming about what will happen when the Republicans upend Roe. And I've watched that hysteria for so long, and I've watched them create their own worst nightmare. That's all I have to say on the
I
subject.
think that's completely in line with what you say about everything, and that we're using language to speak reality into existence. So, I think this is generally how this stuff goes. People say, I'm afraid of this. And then they build up a lot of media and hysteria, and also make a lot of money, capitalizing on that fear porn. And then it happens. And then they have 10 or 20 more years to capitalize on that as they fight it and whatever it is. So whether they have commercial intentions when they start that nonsense, or whether that's just a ball that gets rolling and can't stop, 100%. They start it, they continue it, they, it for sure. I don't disagree with you. I don't think that's unpopular. Certainly not with our crowd. That isn't going to be unpopular. Yeah.
Right.
So you lose because I know you're always shooting to have the most unpopular opinion. Right? Okay. So we have one more here.
So we should have done the Brett. My apologies. That's on me. The Brett is just, again, trending in a linguistic psyopery. Start to pay attention to this particular phrase that we're going to hear in this clip.
All right, here we go.
Which is, yeah, it's genocide. What's the problem?
Pause.
People really become convinced.
This has nothing to do with this clip, but this has occurred to me. This fight over the word genocide and getting certain people to say this one word, and then kind of debating whether it's enough death, it's enough slaughter to count.
It's so gross.
It's so gross.
Yeah. It is. I mean, it's kind of like the exercise on the other, the people on the right or the pro-Israel people played this well, do you condemn Hamas? Do you condemn Hamas game? And then now the people on the other side are why won't you call it a genocide? Right? It's this whole, it's very weird. Okay.
I am doing God's bidding. I am doing the just and right thing in what I'm doing. And the only way that I see getting to the other side of that is everybody has to wake up to one simple fact. Ideas control everything. And what I mean by that are you believe certain things to be true. You confuse it for objective reality, which is physics, but you believe certain things are true. Call it is. Then you have a set of things, your values, that you believe ought to be true. And so now you have is, which they confuse for objective reality, and ought, which they often confuse with just self-evident or divine, whatever. And this is a non-negotiable. And both of those things will be ferociously debated by the other side, who sees the truth of neither. They have their own is and their own ought. And so until we all go, I know I'm in the grips of a delusion. I cannot see things clearly. And so we all have to come to some set of shared values, and then you build up from that. If we can't share values, I don't, no matter how much you talk.
I love that we didn't even have to listen to Brett talk.
I know, he said it for him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So is that it on that clip?
That was it. Just
Okay.
like this is our trend report, our PSYOP trend report.
Yeah. So there's certain terminology that the people who Dani and I have been tracking for many years now have been seeding into the memosphere, the video podcasting world and whatever for a while. They've tried different things. Some have been short-lived. Some have had longer lives. Some are new. It seems like they try different variations on things with different kinds of audiences to see what's sticking. But we're starting to see a real ramping up in certain phrases that they've decided are the ones to go with, you know? And we'll be talking a good bit about that in the regular Words podcast that we'll post tomorrow. And so that, right, a completely different person than we were looking at in that analysis. Tom Bilyeu is someone you and I have never talked about, though I've seen him many times and whatnot. So it's there too. And it wouldn't have been my first thought, though he's interviewed a lot of those people. I don't normally classify him in the same group, but it seems like the wellness company has reached far and wide and is like clustering everyone together in this weird way. It's not really weird, but like a lot, if you look at what all is either under that umbrella or adjacent, like I think there's like a few other, let's call those like umbrellas or trees or something like that. There's a few others that either are related, but they're pretending that they're not because they have different names, like different nootropics and different wellness things. They have different names. So they're pretending they're not, or it's just like someone who was part of that, like broke off because they had an argument. So they have their own little tent over here of people basically doing the same thing, but the two controllers got in a pissing fight and, you know, or whatever, something like that. So it is interesting how the wellness industry is funding the psychological propaganda that is leading to this sort of homogenization, totalitarian blob that we're sort of really seeing coalesce now.
I wonder if the wellness company has some sort of incentive program where if they send out to the people who they're sponsoring, like bonuses for mentioning these words, these phrases.
Is what happens. I can tell you this because like I told you, my one experiment with, you know, taking a sponsor or something like that I only ever agreed to because I didn't have to talk about it. Like I could, but there was no requirement that I make a commercial or that I say anything specific about it all. If I just wanted to put a link in my, whatever, right? But even that felt too weird and gross for me. So that just didn't last long. It is multi-level marketing. So basically what happens is, like, let's say Brett goes on Tom Bilyeu's show and Tom Bilyeu has that company as a sponsor. And when Brett is there, Tom Bilyeu says, hey, I have these sponsors. It's like, excellent. I have to do almost nothing. And like, I've been earning quite a bit of money or whatever it is. And they don't make you, you know, you can talk about whatever you want. They don't care, whatever it is, whatever that was what they said to me. Like maybe that's not their selling thing, but right. So just, I'm going to send you a code. And if you want to sign up with them, or if you want to have a meeting with them to come on, then just use this code. And that, like, it's like me vouching for you. Then what happens is, like, every time Brett makes a sale, again, this is a hypothetical, I'm not saying this is what Brett is doing, then Tom Bilyeu gets them. Then when Brett has Peter McCullough or Robert Malone or whatever on the show, and he says, hey, I am working for this company, or I'm getting sponsored, and I give it to you, and I'm going to give you this code. When Peter McCullough or Robert Malone or whatever person goes and turns in their code so they can do it, Brett gets paid and Tom Bilyeu gets paid. Then they go, so it goes on and on and on. And what's crazy is, like, the Tom Bilyeu, right? You get to a point where it starts mushrooming. You're earning way more money almost from the residuals from all of those third, fourth, fifth ones out than you are from necessarily new sales. And like, it's like this, ever increasing, you know, it's like the tumbleweed that gets faster and bigger as it, you know, as it goes down. Right. So that's what's happening.
Well, that I totally believe, but I'm talking about for narrative control. So, like, I worked retail for many, many years. So it would be like, okay, this month, whoever sells the most belts, you know, wins a prize. And if you sell 5 belts, you get $50. If you sell 10 belts, you get 100, like whatever. So I'm wondering if they also, on top of the multi-level marketing in terms of bringing people in, if they have a bonus program to incentivize certain words and phrases and ideas.
So that is entirely possible, but I don't even know if they would need to do that, because the first people those companies approached are people who either by their nature or by some other association that person has, political, financial, ideological, religious, governmental, or whatever, will likely push the narrative that you want. And
I'm
so,
just trying to figure out why Tom Bilyeu said Brett's phrase back to him when it seemed out of character for him to be pushing that.
So I'm going to tell you right now. So let's just say that, like, let's pretend that the wellness company has been tracking the intellectual dark web for as long as we have. Like, they've been spotting, these are going to be their guys. And they figure out that, like, Jordan Peterson, Brett Weinstein, Dave Rubin, and 2 other people, right? Like, those are the people that they're going to go after because they have the broadest couple of things. They seem to be sort of controllable in this specific kind of way. They have certain personal tendencies. They know the most number of people and sort of like cross-pollinate into other ideologies sort of from their own. Whatever. So we're going to start with these people that have, like, especially if we're talking about this as being funded by the Silicon Valley tech bros. Right? They have the ideas that we like. So they're going to start doing that. And then the people who have them on the podcast or who have listened to their media for a long time and then get invited into this free money earning club, right? Like, they're going to recognize that these people are making a lot of money in selling this stuff. And it's probably because they have a lot of listeners and listeners like what they're saying. And so if I say the popular thing, I'll get as many views and then I'll get more people, right? It's like this weird thing that just, I mean, it's just like what happens in high school with popularity or with fucking Mary Kay Cosmetics or whatever it is. Like, eventually, like, those become your people. Right? All the people who are into that stuff, and we all say the same magic phrases, and we go to the same stupid places, and we wear the same dumb shit, and we believe this. And like, eventually you find yourself doing stuff that is like completely divorced from anything that you were before you started down that path. Yeah. Right. But this seems to me like this has been a long play, right? Like, this has been like something or someone who either was involved in an earlier form of this, like maybe in the sort of early day conspiracy media with some of the industries that sort of dominated that smaller podcast space sphere. And they had figured out how to move conspiracy a little bit more mainstream. Like, so it's on that edgy spot between mainstream and conspiracy culture. They figured out things that worked and didn't work, what kind of personalities go along with what or whatever it is. And they've been watching people for a long time before they made their move. And they made it slick and slow and with just a few people in the back and sort of tinkered and twisted and watched how it mushroomed. And then when they sort of figured out like what the catch was, like what just the amount of money someone has to be making in order to not want to risk pissing someone off is, like, that's when the mushroom cloud just completely exploded.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So this, I don't have any clips, but yeah, so you guys will see, and we recommend that those of you who have not joined us yet at wordspodcast.locals.com, go over there tomorrow. It'll be, I'm working out of town, so I don't know what time tomorrow it'll be up, but our new episode, or part 1 of our new episode, will be up. You can use the program, the promo code Welcome to Words, all capital letters, one word, someone told me it didn't work, but I went and tested it and it did work. It's so I think it just was something funny with that particular attempt. So if you haven't checked us out there, go check it out. Go check us out there tomorrow. But this thing that we were going through yesterday, right? It was like this kind of exact sort of like I was trying to understand like if one were to sort of graph out the dynamics and the physics of like what went on in that sort of conversation yesterday and whatnot. I was listening to something and different topic and sort of different, but kind of the same. I was listening to Freddie Sayers from Unheard talk about the issue that Unheard had when they tried to attract advertising for their channel, right?
Okay.
And this very strange like rabbit hole of things that he went down to sort of figure out like what was actually controlling the way the world is going. Was it like what makes logical sense? Or was it like really like the emotions, feelings, and desires of a few, or even in some cases, one person, like feeding an algorithm that ends up sort of controlling, you know, Cuckooville, right? So there was this good, it was kind of an interesting listen. It was called Inside the Disinformation Industry. So it felt like in this weird way, like not the same, but connected to that which we were sort of talking about, and how like this weird sort of language and ideas can sort of come in and, you know, you think you're doing something to help, but suddenly you're like controlling this whole totalitarian world with what you like. Right. And to the point where like people who do good work or have reasonable but different ideas than you like are not invited to participate because that's not reality or whatever it is, right? So I recommend people take a little listen to that. Like it's not anything super news breaking, but just the way he put together the step by step of what happened sort of there, I feel like was kind of interesting.
So was he exposing some sort of injustice that was being done to him and his organization? Was he like,
Yes.
what was the, oh, okay.
Yes. And that obviously, like if it has happened to him, it's probably happening to lots of other people, right? But he was able to get a specific answer that a lot of other people aren't able to get as to exactly how it was happening and who was doing it. He didn't have trouble finding a company that was willing to work with him, but those companies all use the same. So you know how like when you go to buy a house or something, if you contact a real estate agent, they all use the same MLS platform that shows you like what houses are for sale. All of the people who are in that advertising industry use certain like tech portal platforms and things like that to enter into the space of like looking for advertisers or whatever. And the way that was being controlled, sometimes not even with the platform owner's understanding of like who he had hired to control some of that space, that like normal people just trying to get advertising on their channel or whatever, were getting marked as like you shouldn't want to, it's dangerous to work with them over not only ideas that really aren't controversial, but like ideas that are the law. Like legally, this is what the law says something is, right? Somebody's feelings that doesn't like what the law says is making it impossible for these people to get advertising, even though they're literally saying what the law is, right?
Right.
So it was, but it was kind of interesting. And I listened to it right after I finished listening to what you and I ended up analyzing last night. And it was like this interesting sort of step-by-step sort of process through the creation of a religion and then the imposition of that religion into all sorts of areas that like don't really make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Did it change your perspective on Freddie Sayers? Like, do you think he's an honest actor? Do you think he's just stupid?
He's not a person I have like, I think he's a relatively honest actor. Like, I think some people are just wrong on some things, in my opinion, where some people I just disagree with, right? I'm not saying that because I disagree with them is why they're wrong, being wrong or like having opinion that I don't like is different than being full of shit or a sellout or bought and paid for or whatever it is. I'm sure that like, you know, there's probably things behind him that have chosen him based on his natural proclivities to be in the position that he's in. But that is different than saying something you don't believe just to go along with something or intentionally cajoling people in a way that is I feel like he's a fair actor in the space that he's in. Right. And like sometimes I disagree with him to the point that I have to turn it off. And sometimes I really agree with the things that he's saying. And other times I'm not interested in what he's saying, but I don't ever feel this like weird grossness from him that I feel from some of the other similar like positions, people who hold similar positions in that space. Okay. So there was that. And then I also listened to this morning some clips of Megyn Kelly and Glenn Greenwald in a debate about Israel.
Yeah.
And so a couple of things, you know, it was civil, which was kind of nice to see on some level. And I think he does a really good job going into spaces where he knows there's going to be stupid ideas thrown at him and staying neutral long enough to make his point without, you know, not getting upset. But so her positions didn't surprise me, right? But what surprised me was the things she used to back up her positions were literally still straight out of the 2003, 2004, we have to go into Iraq narrative about the Middle East, right? Like literally she was using the same talking points that they were using when Condoleezza Rice was trying to make the case as to why we had to go into Iraq and whatever about like, oh, they hate us for our freedoms. And, you know, they don't like us because we have democracy and women wear tank tops. And like I was shocked that like that was like, this is a person, for whatever you think about her, she isn't stupid, right? She is a lawyer and she has managed to, over the course of her career, change her positions on some things, including she was willing to platform people who went against a lot of narratives during the COVID, blah, blah, blah. So just to hear her like do that, say that, right? But then ultimately come off of it and like sort of agree with Glenn in this weird way. It was really fucking weird, right? Like it was this sort of bizarre moment where like, I don't know like who did the research. I don't know who helped her put together like that as her set of points. And I don't know if it was just a distraction. So we're not arguing about what the real merits of this conflict are right now because they spent so much time talking about the merits of a 2003, 4, 5 conflict and that right kind of thing. It was really weird. So I was just wondering if you had seen that and what you thought.
I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah, it was bizarre, right? So, but it was civil and it, you know, obviously his points were much better than hers, but it was like not a hard debate. That was not a hard debate to win, right? So there was that. And then trying to think if there was any other videos I listened to or some things that I sort of watched that I was like, oh, I'll include that in the sort of conversation tonight. Let me just check real fast. It's always easy to just pull up my my history and go, oh yeah, that was what I wanted to say, right? Let's see. All right. I think that's mostly it. Oh, I mean, then there's just this ongoing thing between, you know, with the Speaker of the House, with Mike Johnson, and the arguing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it's changing. It seems to change multiple times a day, so I'm not sure where the current stance is, but like he's doing all the stuff like bringing the bills to fund Ukraine, and he reauthorized the spying, you know, brought the bill to reauthorize all the spying without any fixing it and whatever it is. And there were some questions whether like she was just threatening or she was actually going to go through with it, but it does look like she is moving to offer the thing to vacate the speaker, right, over whatever that is. So that is kind of an interesting, like, you know, he didn't last long. This is like this will be the second speaker that they've kicked out in like 6 months.
It's clown show.
Huh? It's clown show. It's
Like
clown
that's all I got. It's ridiculous.
It's clown show, but it is like this isn't something we've seen. Like generally, they all just at the end, at the last minute, go along to get along, and they sign the bill. And this was the whole thing why Jimmy Dore and a lot of those disaffected leftists were really mad at like the Squad, because the Squad didn't do to Nancy Pelosi what the like pro-Trump part of the Republican Party are doing to these speakers. And so like my assumption was just that they would do the same thing that the Squad did and just eventually like make a stink, but then eventually go along. So this is a new territory. So I wonder what the psyop that's being set up by this is.
I'm guessing it's called Civil War, because that's another one they just keep dropping that over and over. There's that movie that would make sense in terms of like the divide having gotten to such an extreme that even government can't get anything done.
I did listen to a clip with Tucker Carlson and some guy named Jesse Kelly today, who like this guy was pretty aggressive in going after this idea that he has about like, that the like I don't know like I don't have like a catchy way to say the idea he's proposing, but he's basically saying that the situation at the border has gotten so bad that it's time for red states to disobey the Constitution and renegotiate their relationship with the federal government, and not wait until like there's an agreement about it, but just start doing it now, like create their own force and do whatever they need to do at the border and start arresting any feds that come in to try to stop them from doing it or whatever it is. But like it was aggressive. So to your point, to your point. So, all right, let's go to the chat room and see what the kids are talking about. Where are we? There we are.
Did you hear about the NPR editor getting suspended?
Is this the NPR editor that came out and said that NPR had lost their way, and he did a really good job at like exposing everything except for like when it came to the like it was like things we would clap about until he got to the Israel part, and then he's like, and they let all these pro-Hamas people on, right, or whatever. I didn't know he got suspended, but I was aware that this article was getting a lot of play.
Yeah, so he got suspended without pay for 5 days, and there's all this hullabaloo around, because I've talked to a couple self-identified liberals about this and the larger censorship sphere, and they go like, well, YouTube's a private company. They could do whatever they want. That's not censorship. It's just capitalism. And then they're like, same with the New York Times. And I'm like, no, not the same with the New York Times. Like, and so now with NPR, they're like, but this is publicly funded. So this kind of does count as government censorship. But I'm watching, do you remember, I mean, I'm sure we all remember in terms of like trauma-based mind control, JFK's skull being blown off on television, and then Jackie Kennedy making a grab for it to put it back on as though that's going to do something. That's what I see the left doing around the whole censorship conversation. Like the excuses they're making to justify censorship, I just keep seeing that image in my mind of like, that's adorable how pathetic anyone defending this type of censorship is.
Yeah, it was interesting. I read that article the other night, and I don't think I ever got, I can't remember if I ever finished the article, but whatever, I got through the bulk of it. But like, I remember some of that. Like, I remember when they were just pretending like the reason that they're not covering the Hunter Biden laptop is because they don't waste time on things that aren't stories, right? Like kind of thing that this just absolute sort of dismissal of stuff. And I remember being my dad was over, I was back in Los Angeles visiting, and my dad came to stay at the house with me, and he was listening to NPR, and I was listening with him to, they were interviewing a gentleman who had written a book about like whether or not the deep state exists, and if it does, why people should be glad that they do, to stop Trump and this, that, like literally like the rationales. Like I was, trying to explain to my dad about how what he listens to and what the side he opposes listens to, like the, Fox listening, whatever, like whoever he thinks I was like, you guys are just on the opposite sides of the clown mirror, and neither represent reality. It's a fucking reversible jacket, but it's the same goddamn jacket. You know what I mean? And yeah. So I was explaining to him how like literally from the other side, what the deep state, I'm like, this is every issue, Dad. Like there's no, like, this is how you know that you're being worked, right? When there is no common basis for reality at all about any of this stuff, when it is literally like one side is short and fat, one side is tall and skinny, right? None of you are seeing reality, kind of, you know, and
it's like Tom Billy was saying in that clip before
yes,
he
100%.
said the mind control phrase.
His point was really good until
Yes.
he fell into the dogma of the mantra of the shared values.
Correct.
Right? Now, but like, here's the thing. That's a term that I have used before. Like, I realized at a certain point that I preferred to be around people who had similar values to me rather than people who were like-minded. Right. So I don't want to be around people who hold all the same opinions as me, but I want to be around people who like have, like, they might think that, like, you know, these qualities in a person are important, or this way of comporting yourself, or whatever it is. But I like the diversity of opinion and some of the argumentation and the conversations that can happen. But I don't want to be like hanging out with people who just like think completely different things in like life that are important than,
Yeah.
right? So that part I understand, but that's not what they're talking about when they say shared values, or they're talking about this other field.
And in the same way that we're hearing Trump's abortion ban over and over and over again, just start to notice that we're about to start hearing shared values, existential risk, existential crisis we're about to be pummeled with these.
Meta crisis, global challenges, like all of this stuff. And from people who, like, at some point in the last 1 to 5 years, you may have thought was cool for a minute, right? They're going to start literally like using this stupid language in the same way. Like, you know, when you watch those videos of like every news station in the country saying the exact same sentence,
Yes.
you know, every night, and they put all the videos together,
Yeah.
it's going to be like that, right? From
Yes.
all of these people. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's go to the chat room and see what the kids have to say. All right. If you got questions, comments, any of that, all capital letters, and we will respond. If
Hi,
not,
Francesca.
lots of
Hi,
friends.
Dr.
in the house
Laura.
tonight.
Hi, Jim.
Dr. Laura is in the house. Woo! My favorite, I love the name Canadian Goose Shit. It's a great name. They're debating.
Yes,
whether
Maceo, it's all for my convenience and better service. I feel so well served by my government institutions.
All right, there's lots of things going on in the chat room that I can't follow, that I have no idea what they were talking about. And since nobody, we got an all capital he, but I don't think that's a question. Oh, here we go. There's one. How exciting. All right. What do I think about social engineering efforts going forward? Like, I mean, that's, I guess, mostly what Dani and I think about, at least for our show, is the social engine. Well, I think that they're going to become more and more outlandish because, like, I don't, the people who fall for them are like doubling down. People who are into that, like the people who are easily controlled by social engineering, are doubling down on being easy to control. But I do think that there's starting to be more, for the people who are not, this sort of creative resistance, or the just like the humor that is responding back to it, is going to make some of their efforts, you know, semi like futile. Like, they get mad when you meme them too hard, right? And so, like, the social engineering, like, I don't know. I don't know how much longer they're going to have to come up with a new clown show, because this one's getting so, I mean, you and I can, it's immediate at this point, right? Like, we say something and they have to respond within minutes sometimes.
Of course. But
Right.
they, you know, just like the person who, you know, we spoke about in yesterday's show, which drops tomorrow, outwordspodcast.locals.com, use the promo code welcome to words.
All one word.
So many people are, there's so many entities who are on board. So, like, even with this nonsense about the post office stuff, like when I was talking to the guy at DMV today, I'm like, I totally understand this is out of your hands and I appreciate your help, but can you recognize the absurdity of this. And he's like, oh yeah, of course. But no one pushes back. Like they're still driving. He's still a minion of that machine. You know, so I always get hung up about it around the weaponization of customer service, automation, and like that is the biggest social engineering game I see going on. And I don't see anyone pushing back and saying no.
So I think like, and this is one of those things that like perfectly highlights sort of our personality differences. Like for me, it's just like, I think like when people start ignoring it, just like, okay, well then I won't get mail, or like, okay, well then like, I'm just not gonna use Amazon, not gonna use YouTube, and just like start just like letting all that stuff fall away. Like, I feel like on some level, they hate that more than they hate when people push back.
Well, of course, but remember when YouTube put out their first round of like hyper enslavey YouTube user agreements, and I took all my videos down, and I'm like, Emily, now's the time. We have to take our videos down. And you were like, no, I don't want to deal with that. And same with every other content creator. No one pushed back. No one dropped out. I was the only one who did it. And that's what I see in terms of like my personal efforts. Like right, so we all just want our convenience.
Right. But that was pushback on your part. And like, eventually, like, you know, it's like impossible for me to imagine that if YouTube became unusable for me, that I'm going to go find like another platform and start all over again. Right. Like I will just do something else probably at this point. And so like, I will not be, contributing to whatever this is anymore. So I think that that's kind of like, and I completely respect and think that way that you do it is a viable way, and some people should do that. But I think there's a lot of like wither and dyers out there that are just like, okay, like if I can't get mail, then I guess I just won't get mail, right? If I can't, you know, and just sort of stopping playing at all. Right. When they can
no one's stopping playing at all. Like when you love restaurants, you love a good cocktail and amazing food. And when they come to your table with the little computer that you're supposed to stick your card in, do you do that or do you opt out of that?
So I mostly choose to go to restaurants that don't do that. Right. And on the rare opportunity, the rare time that I'm at a one that does that, I wouldn't say I have a standard. I think I play a different game every time, right? Sometimes I'll ask them to print me the receipt. Sometimes I'll do it. You know, other times like sometimes I'll go into the window and they're like, oh, you need to order from your phone. And I'm just like, bye. So like, I don't have a standard response to it. It's kind of go with whatever I'm feeling. But the biggest thing that I do is choose to go to places that either take cash or do person-to-person, hand-to-hand service, you know, pretty much only, or opt. Like the other day, somebody showed us that at one, and I'm like, do we have to do that? They're like, no. I'm like, great. I'd rather talk to you. Right. So, but for me, like the playful or the like, I don't care response works much better than the no, you know, but that's me. Yeah.
Of course. Like that's always going to work better. I'm just seeing a lot of frogs boiling and being freaking clueless about like, I cannot overstate it. And I'm sure I sound like a broken record, but this automated AI bullshit is really taking us to a dark place. So we would be wise in a playful, like we can be playful about it, but like to stop going along with it. It's annoying to me.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's certainly respectable. I think I encourage everybody to find their own unique way of not going along with it.
Yes.
Right? Kind of thing. And so, and the biggest thing is just like knowing what's going on, right? Because the boiling frogs are generally people who don't even know what's going on. And they're just going along with this mindlessly. Once you're aware of what's going on, then you can start deciding what, if anything, you want to do about it and what things you're willing to participate or not. Because sometimes there's something to do about it. And other times it's just like, okay, I'm just done with that then. Right. You know, so, but yeah, but somebody said that I deserved, and Sandra Bullock says that I deserve endless Maine lobster rolls and clam chowder. Well, I do like lobster rolls and clam chowder. They're not necessarily at the top of my list, but I'll take them. Thank you.
Ask Sandra Bullock about her face cream. She really likes that.
Is Gen Z going to wake up to Jordan Peterson and the other CIA? Like if they listen to our shows, sure. Yeah, of course. Grateful Dogs. How about the doctor that died on Eclipse Day, the God particle doctor in CERN? Yeah, that Peter Higgs, who the Higgs boson. So nothing really big happened on the eclipse day. A portal didn't open at CERN, but the person who the God particle that they search for is named after did die on that day. So there you go.
That doesn't seem like an accident. There was also an earthquake in New York.
There was an earthquake, like, was it New York or was it like New Jersey, like Newark area or something, right?
I don't really know the difference. Something
like
on
that.
the East Coast.
Okay. Did Trump really ask RFK to be his VP?
I don't believe that.
Oh, see, I think he probably did.
No fucking way, because he's so vain and narcissistic. And RFK's like, regardless of our opinions on him, he can hold his own. He's charismatic. There's no way Trump would choose a running mate like that. He's too insecure. Like, just on a basic human psychological level, no way. It was always going to be a chick.
So I think that I don't think he asked him. Like when you listen to the reporting on this, like the headlines all say, Trump asked RFK to be his vice president and he declined. But when you read farther in, he asked him to like go through that same process he had Tulsi and like to be on the list. Right. My guess would be Trump would ask him if he wanted to be on the list of people to be considered. Right. And then maybe do what you're saying. Right. But yeah, I'm not saying I think he would pick him, but I think he would ask him to be on that list of people for consideration, because that's a way of asserting during the course of the election that this person isn't really a presidential candidate, like really all their, that kind of thing. So
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. All right, kids, I think we're at the end. I'm hungry. So wordspodcast.locals.com. Sometime tomorrow, there'll be a special treat. Welcome to Words is all one word in capital. And Dani, do you have any other things just from your own neck of the woods? And then I will let people know about mine.
My neck of the woods is my pop propaganda course for teens and grown-ups is on sale now, poppropaganda.com. If you're interested in one-on-one coaching with me, reach out. I have space on my roster for one client right now.
And Dani also has her own locals and her own Patreon, as do I. And I offer free month in my locals community. I think the promo code, it's emilymoyer.locals.com. Join Emily, all one word in capital. And there's also free weeks on Patreon and stuff like that. There's lots of shows there. I do this on YouTube with Dani and put a few other things once in a while on YouTube, but there's like endless hours of this nonsense available elsewhere. So if you enjoy it, then indulge. All right, guys, we will see you